There are two types of men in this world: those who chase answers in noise, and those who find revelation in silence. King Solomon was not born wise. He became wise because he asked for the right thing. While most men crave the crown, the gold, and the applause, Solomon desired one thing above all understanding. That is the first great secret of his legacy. Wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord. Not fear as in trembling, but reverence, a deep recognition of a power greater than one's own. You see, in a world obsessed with intellect, logic, and self-made pride, Solomon bowed before something eternal. He didn't try to outthink the universe. He aligned with its creator, and from that alignment flowed insight, clarity, and decisions that built empires. The modern man reads books but forgets to humble himself. The wise man reads his own soul and finds the truth waiting there. Solomon understood something few ever realize: all human knowledge without divine alignment is noise. You can learn from 1,000 voices, but if you are not tuned into the voice of truth, you'll only accumulate confusion. The secret wisdom is not about gathering more facts. It's about uncovering eternal principles that govern all of life, and those principles are hidden from the arrogant. When he ascended to the throne, Solomon didn't ask for fame or vengeance against his enemies. He didn't even ask for long life. He asked for a discerning heart, to know what is right and what is wrong. That was the key that unlocked the gates of abundance, because when a man has wisdom, he doesn't need to chase wealth. Wealth chases him. When a man has wisdom, he doesn't seek validation. He radiates confidence that speaks louder than applause. Solomon knew that real leadership begins in surrender, not to men, but to higher wisdom. And when you start there, you build a foundation that nothing can shake. The storms may rage, the markets may crash, the world may doubt, but if you walk in alignment with truth, you walk with unshakable strength. This generation has been taught to seek status, titles, followers, and opinions. Solomon sought something more eternal: discernment. Because with discernment you can smell a lie before it speaks, you can see the future in today's decision, and you can lead without being led by emotion. That is the first secret you must engrave upon your heart. Wisdom does not start with books or opinions. It starts with humility before the source of truth. Once that seed of reverence is planted, the second law takes root. Mastery of self leads to dominion over life. Most people want to control circumstances. Solomon knew that was futile. You don't need to control the world. You need to control your mind. The man who can govern his inner world has already conquered the outer. He once said, "He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." That's not poetry. That's power. The world claps for the man who builds empires, but wisdom applauds the man who controls his emotions. Because empires fall, but mastery is immortal. Think of the times you lost control. When anger spoke instead of logic, when fear dictated instead of faith. In those moments you didn't lose to others, you lost to yourself. Solomon's secret was not in intimidating others. It was in calming himself. He understood that the greatest victory is not external, but internal. The man who rules his spirit is untouchable. He doesn't need to shout to be heard. He doesn't need to prove himself. His presence speaks. He doesn't react. He responds, and that difference is everything. Reaction is rooted in emotion. Response is rooted in wisdom. You will never rise above what you cannot master within. If your mind is undisciplined, your future will be unstable. If your temper controls you, your enemies will too. Solomon taught that dominion comes from discipline, not from controlling others, but from refusing to be ruled by your own weakness. Look around at the greatest falls in history: leaders, kings, celebrities, tycoons. Almost every fall began not with the sword of an enemy, but with the lack of self-control. Lust, greed, pride, envy. These aren't just sins, they are self-made prisons, and the man who does not master them will serve them for life. Solomon built a kingdom that stunned the world. Queens traveled continents just to hear his words, but it wasn't because he had an army. It was because he had peace within. And when a man has peace within, his words carry weight beyond the reach of armies. The real work is not out there, it's in here. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. You can't teach others to win if you're still losing the battle in your own head. Solomon's life reveals that wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers to the man willing to sit in silence and conquer his chaos. Self-mastery is not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally intelligent. Anger, fear, sorrow, they are all visitors, but they must never be allowed to rule. The wise man invites them in, listens, learns, and then sends them on their way. The fool lets them unpack and stay, and that difference determines the trajectory of one's entire life. Most people want success without discipline. But Solomon's life shouts this truth. Asterisk, asterisk, you cannot hold the crown if you cannot bear the weight of it. Asterisk, asterisk, and only a self-mastered man has the spine to carry that burden with grace. You want more influence. Then master your reactions. You want more success. Then master your habits. You want peace. Then master your mind. Solomon didn't become wise overnight. It was a conscious pursuit, a relentless choice to choose clarity over chaos, calm over control, and truth over temptation. And he wasn't perfect. His later years showed the danger of forgetting the very wisdom he once asked for. But in his rise lies the blueprint for anyone who desires to live beyond mediocrity. Start by building the foundation of reverence. If you believe you are the ultimate authority, you've already lost. Wisdom flows to those who listen to something greater than themselves. Then build upon that with discipline. Rule your spirit, or it will rule you. Don't fear the battle outside. Fear the battle within. Because if you win that war, the world becomes your servant. You don't need more information. You need transformation. And that transformation begins when you kneel before truth and rise in strength. The crown you're after doesn't sit on your head. It sits in your habits, your thoughts, your decisions, and your discipline. Master those, and you will walk through life like Solomon. Quiet, composed, and powerful beyond measure, there is a misunderstanding that has ruined many men. The belief that prosperity is the result of chasing money. Solomon's wisdom shattered that illusion. He never ran after gold. He ran after understanding, and in doing so, the gold ran after him. This is the third law that separates the wise from the foolish. Prosperity follows understanding, not greed. You cannot become rich in substance if you are bankrupt in principle. You cannot build a lasting legacy if your foundation is desire without discipline. Solomon's vaults overflowed not because he schemed for silver, but because he understood value. And that is the secret most people miss. Money doesn't go to the one who wants it most. It goes to the one who understands how to solve problems. It goes to the one who brings uncommon value in a world full of common men. Gold responds to wisdom like a servant to its master. If you chase it without becoming wise, it will flee. But if you become the kind of person worthy of it, it comes to you as if by divine command. What did Solomon understand that others didn't? He understood that every problem is an opportunity in disguise. Every obstacle is a chance to reveal value. Every need is a seed that, when met with insight, produces abundance. The world rewards those who can see what others cannot. While most complain about the darkness, the wise learn to sell candles. Greed says, "What can I get?" Wisdom asks, "What can I give that others desperately need?" And in that single shift, your life transforms. Because when you become a solution, the world cannot afford to ignore you. When your mind is trained to see hidden connections, you will create wealth even in seasons of famine. That's not luck, that's law. That's not magic, that's mastery. You must become a magnet for value. People do not pay for your time, they pay for your clarity, they pay for results, they pay for your ability to deliver what no one else can. That means your mind must be sharper than your hunger. Your thoughts must be richer than your cravings. You don't build wealth by hustling blindly. You build it by thinking deeply, learning continually, and applying wisdom relentlessly. Solomon knew the patterns of people, the patterns of nature, the patterns of behavior. He understood that life is not chaos. It is governed by laws, and those who discover those laws dominate those who ignore them. He wasn't guessing, he was observing. He studied ants and learned industry. He studied fools and learned what to avoid. He studied kings and learned what earns trust and what breeds rebellion. This is where most men fall. They try to earn more before they learn more. They want a better life without becoming a better thinker. But until your mind expands, your life cannot. The ceiling is not above your head, it's in your head. And Solomon smashed that ceiling with relentless understanding. His riches came because his insight grew. His influence grew because his wisdom deepened. The man who thinks with clarity becomes a light in a world filled with fog. People will bring their problems to him. They will pay to sit at his table. They will travel across deserts just to hear his ideas. Why? Because understanding is rare. Noise is everywhere, but insight is priceless. Solomon's prosperity was not a reward for greed. It was a reflection of alignment. The universe does not reward the man who grasps. It rewards the man who gives. But giving is not just charity. Giving is showing up with answers when the world is filled with confusion. Giving is building systems that make people's lives better. Giving is creating more value than you consume. That's not just business, that's wisdom. That's the way the wise think. The greedy chase coins and lose their character. The wise chase understanding and gain both character and coin. Greed is impatient. Wisdom is strategic. Greed says, take it all now. Wisdom says, plant the seed, water it with discipline, and harvest more than you ever imagined. That is the path Solomon walked, and it is still open to any man who dares to think at that level. But there's another hidden truth Solomon mastered. Speak less, listen more, and you'll learn what others miss. This is the fourth pillar of his wisdom. In a world addicted to noise, Solomon chose silence. In crowds clamoring for attention, he observed. In the counsel of the loud, he listened, and because of that, he saw beneath the surface. He once said, even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. That's not just a proverb, that's a strategy, because the more you speak, the more you reveal, but the more you listen, the more you learn. The talker exposes his ignorance, the listener gains power. The world underestimates the quiet man, until he speaks with such accuracy that no one can challenge him. Why did Solomon become the wisest man to live? Because he listened before he ruled. He listened to pain, he listened to conflict, he listened to truth. He didn't fill the room with his voice. He filled his mind with information, and when he spoke, he hit the heart of the matter in one sentence. Your strength is not in how much you say. It's in how well you hear. Most people listen to reply. Wise men listen to understand, and once they understand, they hold the key to every locked door. Do you want influence? Then stop trying to impress people and start seeking to understand them. Do you want power? Then study human nature in silence. You don't need to dominate every conversation. You need to dominate your attention. The man who listens sees patterns others miss. He sees the unspoken fears. He hears the gap between words. He recognizes the motive behind the mask. That's not superstition. That's deep perception. And Solomon possessed it because he spent more time observing than reacting. Your growth will explode the day you fall in love with learning, not surface learning, not social media quotes, deep, silent, intentional listening, because the man who listens to everything, God, nature, people, failure, even his own inner voice, becomes unstoppable. He doesn't just hear facts, he hears principles. He doesn't just absorb data. He discerns meaning. Talkers crave validation. Listeners gain revelation, and revelation builds nations. You will never learn anything while trying to prove yourself. But if you humble yourself, you'll see what the proud never will. Solomon's strength was not that he had answers to begin with. It was that he was unafraid to say, "I don't know, teach me." That is the door to all greatness. The foolish believe that silence is weakness, but the wise know that silence is strength under control. It is power without arrogance. It is presence without noise. It is the energy of a man so confident, he doesn't need to shout. The more you grow, the less you talk. The deeper your wisdom, the quieter your presence. The louder the world becomes, the more your silence will speak volumes. Don't be fooled by empty charisma. Be drawn to calm confidence. The truly powerful don't need to interrupt. They influence without effort. They shift the room by their gaze, not their volume. Solomon didn't lead with force. He led with insight. And insight is the reward of those who listen beyond what is said. So, speak less, listen deeper, study human nature, read not just books but behavior. Observe what triggers people, what moves them, what makes them trust, what makes them afraid. Solomon's throne wasn't built on muscle. It was built on mastery of people. He read men like scrolls, and that is what gave him dominion without drawing his sword. There was a point in Solomon's life when he had tasted all the pleasures this world could offer. Women, wine, wealth, gardens, art, music. He had it all. And yet, in the book of Ecclesiastes, the wisest man who ever lived called it all vanity. Chasing pleasure had led him to emptiness, not fulfillment. This is where the fifth pillar of his secret wisdom is revealed. Purpose is greater than pleasure. The world glorifies indulgence. It tells you to live your best life, by consuming, by feeling, by entertaining every desire. But Solomon, who had the authority and resources to fulfill any craving instantly, looked around and said, "This is meaningless." He realized that pleasure without purpose is like trying to quench thirst with salt water. It looks good, it feels satisfying for a moment, but it leaves your soul even more parched. You see, purpose doesn't excite you. It anchors you, it gives your actions direction, it gives your pain meaning. When a man has purpose, he doesn't fall for distractions. He doesn't need constant stimulation. He doesn't waste his energy proving himself. He knows why he's here and what he's building. Pleasure is seasonal. Purpose is eternal. Solomon built cities, composed wisdom, judged nations, and yet he reflected that all of it is pointless without a deeper calling. What's the point of a mansion if it becomes a prison? What's the point of gold if your soul is bankrupt? What's the point of romance if lust blinds you from love? Solomon learned, sometimes the hard way, that man was never meant to be led by pleasure, but to lead his pleasures through the guidance of a meaningful mission. The world will tell you to follow your feelings. Solomon would tell you to question your desires. Feelings are unstable. Pleasure lies. The path that feels good may lead to destruction. The wise man doesn't ask, "Does this feel good?" He asks, "Does this serve my purpose?" And in that question lies power. Power to endure hardship. Power to say no to distractions. Power to delay gratification for a legacy that will outlive him. Purpose will demand that you sacrifice comfort. Solomon did not build his empire by sleeping in. He did not become wise by partying all night. He did not become revered by indulging in every passing whim. Purpose is a flame. You have to protect it, feed it, and sometimes be willing to walk through the fire to keep it alive. Pleasure is about escape. Purpose is about elevation. One is fleeting, the other is fulfilling. Solomon knew that a man who pursues pleasure alone becomes a slave to his cravings, but a man who lives for purpose rises above them. He becomes a master of time, a steward of energy, a builder of dreams. You must choose, because every day you are offered both. The soft bed or the cold morning grind, the distraction or the discipline, the shortcut or the sacrifice. The man who chooses pleasure may win the moment, but the man who chooses purpose wins the decade, and the difference is everything. Solomon discovered that nothing is more painful than wasted potential. He had seen empires fall not from war, but from indulgence. He had seen strong men crumble not from defeat, but from idleness. The man with purpose can lose everything and still rise. The man led by pleasure can gain everything and still fall. The secret is to reverse the question. Stop asking what you can get. Start asking what you were made to give. Solomon's greatness wasn't in what he received. It was in what he gave to the world: wisdom, leadership, order, clarity. His name echoed through generations not because he was entertained, but because he was effective. And how did he begin his journey towards such greatness? That takes us to the sixth law. Seek understanding above all else, and you will stand before kings. When Solomon was young and inexperienced, given the opportunity to ask for anything, he didn't ask for riches, long life, or the defeat of his enemies. He asked for an understanding heart, and in that single decision he unlocked the very treasure he did not ask for. This is where the wisdom of Solomon soars above all. He understood a truth that most miss. Everything you want in life is a byproduct of who you become, and who you become is determined by what you prioritize. Solomon didn't chase status, he chased sense. He didn't beg for miracles. He built with principles, and because he placed understanding at the center, everything else revolved around him. You want wealth, then seek understanding. You want favor, then seek understanding. You want to rise while others sink, then become a man who understands life at a level that others avoid. The surface level thinkers react. The deep thinkers reign. Understanding is the shovel that digs beneath appearances and finds truth. It's the lens that sees through illusion. It's the compass that keeps you steady in chaos. Solomon didn't rule with a sword. He ruled with insight. His understanding of justice, psychology, economics, and the divine gave him an edge that no army could rival. His counsel brought peace where others brought war. His mind was a throne before he ever sat on one. And that is what made kings seek his presence. You must understand, success is not reserved for the lucky. It's earned by those who understand the invisible laws that govern visible results. Life is not random. It's structured, and the man who understands that structure can rise above any setback. He sees opportunities where others see failure. He sees patterns where others see problems. He sees the end while others are stuck in the middle. But understanding doesn't come cheap. It requires hunger. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to admit you don't know, and the discipline to pursue what few care to find. The average man seeks entertainment. The exceptional man seeks enlightenment, and that difference builds kingdoms. To seek understanding means to go beyond easy answers. It means studying yourself, studying people, studying the principles of cause and effect. It means digging into every experience and asking not, "Why did this happen to me?" but "What does this teach me about how life works?" Solomon was never casual about learning. He treated wisdom like treasure. He pursued it like oxygen. He protected it like royalty. When you begin to live like that, when you elevate wisdom over wealth, understanding over applause, you start to shift. People notice. Doors open. Challenges become chess games, not obstacles. Suddenly, you're not fighting life. You're navigating it with precision. You begin to stand before kings not because you forced your way in, but because your mind became too valuable to ignore. That's the hidden path to influence. Become so filled with understanding that kings call for you. Become so rooted in wisdom that even enemies respect you. Don't just study facts. Study patterns, consequences, character, legacy. That's how Solomon moved. He didn't guess, he knew. He didn't react. He calculated. He didn't wander. He walked with intentionality. When you stop being average in your thinking, you stop attracting average outcomes. The world bows to those who solve problems, and solutions come from understanding. That is the law. That is the secret. That is the path less taken. But for those who take it, everything changes. The man who seeks understanding doesn't fear storms. He reads the wind, he doesn't dread failure, he learns from it. He doesn't crave fame, he builds value, he doesn't imitate others, he sharpens himself. And by doing so, he becomes the very thing others try to copy. The secret wisdom of King Solomon reveals that true greatness is not found in riches, status, or fleeting pleasures, but in disciplined pursuit of purpose, deep understanding, and divine alignment. His life teaches us that value attracts wealth, silence breeds power, purpose outweighs pleasure, and wisdom governs all success. The man who seeks understanding rises above noise, solves real problems, and earns influence without demanding it. Solomon's legacy is not gold, it's clarity, and those who follow his principles will find themselves standing before kings, not because they chased glory, but because they became wise enough to be called upon by it.